ever thought of letting yourself loose from the hectic life on land? Buying an ocean-going sailboat and just living the cruising life on the warm oceans of the Caribbean and the South Pacific? Well, today you're in luck. This is Tom from the Wayzata Yacht Club Membership Committee again with another world-famous and fantastic Wanderlust session. Today's topic is a story about living aboard for 10 years while in the Caribbean and the South Pacific by two of our very own beloved club members, Mark and Sara, and is still ongoing. The straight scoop. No AI or drama included. If you like this content, be sure to click the like button and set a bookmark with the subscribe button. And this video will stick around, as well as you'll be able to come back here and get all of the other epic Wanderlusts we'll produce. Got 'em punched? Let's jump in.
Thanks for coming out to see us. I'm Mark Godfrey. This is my wife, Sara Godfrey. And we live on board sailing vessel Due. And we've been living on it for 10 years now. And so we're going to tell you what it's like to live on board the boat. Help me frame things tonight. Who is here because they want to buy an ocean-going vessel and live on it most of the year? All right.
Oh, not really.
Well, good for you. It's you know, we always have to explain ourselves in any kind of day-to-day exchange we're having because the question comes up, well, where do you live? Okay, how much time you got? And we go on to explain that to people, and they go, wow, that is really cool. That's the most amazing thing I've ever heard of. Well, it's a lot of work too, but it is pretty fun. And they say, I wish I could do that. And I say to them, you can. This is not beyond anybody's means. You should know how to sail first. We've seen too many people get on board a boat and they're clueless. And we hear some scary stories too from them. But anyway, if you know how to manage your boat and you've raced out here, you got a good start. You too can live the way we're living, and it's a lot of fun. So we'll tell you more about it. And I guess there's a Q&A at the end. So, but feel free to ask questions as we go. So I think it's the return will be what you need to keep pressing. Sarah's going to be Vanna on the computer to keep the slides going. So how do we ever get into this situation? I didn't put it up here, but I used to sit around reading Cruising World magazine over breakfast in the mornings 15, 20 years ago and thought, wow, Fatty Goodlander's got it going on. I want to do that. But our qualifications, our ability to do this safely came from 20 years of cruising on Sante on Lake Superior. That looks like Thompson Island to me.
Yes, it is.
And then what really made us proficient at sailing was sailing with you people for 10 years here and up on Lake Superior. Our ability to manage a boat and to really sail it effectively and safely was really found in our time racing. We did a lot of bareboat chartering for 10 years. We did either a week, 2 or 3 weeks of bareboat chartering each year. We got a lot of good ocean-going experience with that. And then we wanted a 1-month test case. Could we get on a boat and sail it from Guadalupe to the BVI and not want to kill each other by the time we got to the end of it? We passed that test with flying colors. And we also answered the question monohull versus catamaran when we were anchored off of, actually in a mooring field, off of, what's the island called again?
Saga. Yeah, not Statia, Saba.
Saba, which is one of the Dutch islands. It's goose egg shaped. You're in a national park and you cannot put down a stern anchor to orient your boat into the swells. And so we were doing this all night long. And so that made the answer for us a catamaran. And so we'll talk about it, our life on a catamaran mostly. Go ahead and advance. There's Due.
That stern anchor, because it's prohibited.
It's prohibited in the national park. You can only take moorings, and the mooring bolts are so far apart, there's no way you'd grab two. Okay. So this is Due. Due is a Voyage 440 catamaran. We were really lucky when we found her. She just popped up on Yacht World in our price range one day and said, that's a boat we want to take a good close look at. This is a 44-foot boat, 25 feet wide, and she only weighs 3,000 pounds more than our 36-foot monohull that we had. She's a 19,000-pound boat. So she's a good performing boat. She's quick. She's also got watertight bulkheads and skeg-mounted rudders, all the things you want to have a boat that's really going to be safe on an ocean environment. What else did I want to say about it? So we did 4 years part-time. We bought the boat in 2015 in Florida and then sailed it into the Caribbean. And we did the Caribbean half-time until 2020. So we still have business back here that we were managing. And so in 2020, of course, we all know what happened. Well, in addition to COVID, we sold our business just before COVID started. And it's better to be lucky than good. and Sarah had us booked on flights down to Grenada, where our boat was, on March 15th of 2020. And we were down there until 2021, and while we were down there, we asked ourselves, what in the world do we want a house for? And so we came back, and the house sold in 4 days, and we gave away everything that was inside of it, and then we kept Sante until 2022, and we sold that boat too. So now everything we own fits in a space about the size of that table right there, and it's in my son's basement. All right. So what's so great about this lifestyle? What do we really like about it? The people we meet is probably the most amazing aspect. We really encourage people to travel in life, because it's not until you get out there and travel that you meet other cultures and get to know people on a more intimate level and get a greater appreciation for what the world is like. This guy is on the island of Fatu Hiva in the Marquesas of French Polynesia. So we were just out for a hike when he walked up to us. And they're speaking Polynesian and French there. Sarah's good at French. Neither one of us speak Polynesia except for how to say hello. And he's carrying this mammoth banana set, as you can see. What do you call a thing of bananas?
That's a bunch.
A bunch of bananas. He breaks off a hand of bananas and hands it over to us and says, here, for you. And we said, oh, we've got so much fruit on the boat, we don't know what to do with it all. We don't want to buy it. No. Gratis. He's giving us the bananas for free. The only thing he wanted in exchange for these free bananas was he wanted to have his picture taken with us, even though he had no way of getting the picture from us. Sweet fellow. Next slide, or next image. So in the southern Caribbean, there is an island called St. Vincent, a country called St. Vincent and the Grenadines. How many have been there? So those of you who have been there know that St. Vincent itself is it's a poor country. And the main island of St. Vincent is not the most pleasant place to visit at all times, although we've had some beautiful experiences there. The gem of the country are the Grenadine Islands chain. So it's this whole archipelago, and one of the most popular islands there is the island of Bequia. These two gentlemen live on the island of Bequia. A day doesn't go by that you don't see this guy. He's mentally handicapped, he's physically handicapped, and the entire community just makes sure that he enjoys every day of his life. And so he's always got a smile on his face, and he's at every music concert dancing. This man, I don't know how well you can tell from the distant view, but you can see he's got a gray beard. What you might not see is he's ripped. This guy's got to be in his 50s, and he's got a solid six-pack. And the reason he does is because every time we see him, he's dancing. This guy so Bequia does a music festival, which we'll talk about a little bit later on. And the first time we ever saw him, he's out there and he's going for 4 hours straight. He doesn't stop even when the band stops. And so that guy keeps in great shape. And he's just such a wonderful member of the community down there. You'll see him on the beach playing soccer with 6-year-olds and just having a good time and making sure everybody else is having a good time. Super, super sweet individual. And this is Santa Banana. Santa Banana is a fixture on the island of St. Lucia. Cruising boats are out there every day, and he makes his living by coming out to the cruising boats with a box of fruit and asks you what you want to buy that day. And it's a little bit competitive. There are other boat boys out there doing it too. He shows off by balancing on one foot on his stand-up paddleboard. And so you make your transaction with him. We set the fruit on the edge of the boat, and you get your wallet out to pay him. And right away, he's rearranging the fruit. You cannot have the citrus next to the other fruit, so they won't ripen properly.
Yeah.
So Santa Banana is yet another very sweet character. And these are just a small sample of the wonderful people we meet in the different islands around the world. Fellow cruisers are also amazing. We've met people now from all over the world: Russian, Armenian, Korean, Argentinian, you name it. There's countless people. Let's just talk about a few of them. Chemical engineer, investment banker, his wife, who is the vice president of Chase Manhattan's credit card division. These two own the biggest skydiving school in Oregon. He has 30 aviation patents to his name. He's just constantly thinking. I swear the guy never sleeps, but he's been improving the technology that goes into skydiving airplanes, and he does it nonstop, 24 hours a day, I think. He never went to college. Fascinating, fascinating character.
And us.
You heard of the tragedy that befell a Malaysian Airlines jet in the Indian Ocean many years ago, and the tremendous search that went on to find the plane, find the black boxes. He led the effort. Interesting guy to talk to, because that wasn't a successful venture, of course, but that's not representative of what this guy's capable of. He does all sorts of deep sea specialty engineering projects, and that's the way he's made his career. He's trying to retire. His company won't let him. Pharmacist, his wife. Next slide, please.
Yeah.
Him, her, casino managers. They retired at 50. They didn't know how to sail. They bought a boat and took some classes, and they're leaving French Polynesia now. So they're highly experienced. This couple here work for Alaska Airlines. She does scheduling. He's a pilot. He was a bush pilot in Alaska and in Mauritania, Africa. We know that country well because Sarah was in the Peace Corps in Mauritania, Africa. It's got the highest dropout rate of all the countries around the world because it's such an inhospitable country to live in. Anyway, lots and lots of fascinating people, but it's a classless society. The guy who's got the 30 patents, he drinks $300 bottles of wine. Doesn't think anything of it. We've had a couple of dinners with him where we split the ticket, and he says, what should we have to drink tonight? And I said, you know, Joe, we never ever spend that much money on wine. So he's completely mortified now, and we always pick out the wine. But everybody helps everybody else with their boat. I needed an 8mm cap screw by 20 millimeters in length, and I'm out in my stores, so I put a message out on WhatsApp, and boom, the offers are coming in for spare parts. Really a great community, and the sheer number of people who are out there doing what we do is a testament to how in reach it really is. Where my hat goes off to, our hat goes off to the cruisers that are raising children on their boats. We work our butts off to keep all the systems on our boat working properly, right? And yet there are people out there who have all that work to do to maintain their vessels, keep them safe, keep them operating, and also enjoy the world around them. And they're still raising children and homeschooling them on their boat. And the kids, 201, are the most fascinating children you'll ever meet. They're inquisitive, of course, but they're super self-sufficient. You'll see an 8-year-old jump in the dinghy, fire it up, and run into the beach and run a little errand for mom and dad and come back to the boat. And so there's a group called the Hash House Harriers. I don't know how many people ever heard of it, but it's a running group, and it's really popular in Grenada and other places around the world. And
it's a drinking group with a running problem.
A drinking group with a running problem. This 8-year-old kid comes running alongside of me, and he's talking with, and this kid's having a conversation with me for 20 minutes, and he's an interesting kid. So yeah, if you want a well-adjusted child, take them off the grid for a while. And of course, the ocean's our favorite. It's so much fun. We both know how to scuba dive, and we learned to free dive when we were in Bonaire, and that's a liberating experience to be able to dive down to 50, 60 feet without a tank on your back. Not for a long time, but it really allows you to enjoy things spontaneously, which we've had numerous opportunities to do. Let's go ahead and advance
So
this
how do you
slide.
fill up your tanks?
So we have 6 tanks on the boat. We have friends who have compressors, but we've never asked them to fill our tanks for us. In the Caribbean, it's a piece of cake to find a dive shop to refill your tanks. French Polynesia, not so easy. So you just want to kind of plan ahead on where you're going to be. I'm sorry, I was supposed to tell you, the question that was asked, in case you didn't hear it, was how do we refill our scuba tanks? And the answer is we go to a dive shop and get it done. And so far, we've been able to do it. And we do a lot with just snorkeling. In French Polynesia, there's a group of islands called the Tuamotus. They're atolls. An atoll is just a big ring of sand and coral in the middle of the ocean. All right, so imagine you're in 10,000 feet of water, you're tootling along, and all of a sudden, wow, here's sand and palm trees. And what this is an old island that's been weathered away. The coral has kept the shoreline of that island intact, but everything else is gone, right? And so then there's these passes, these openings in that coral, maybe a 60-foot wide passage that you can get your boat in through. You better time it well, because when the 1 meter tides are flowing, you can get 6 knots of currents against you when you're trying to go in. So you got to time it very carefully. But anyway, the snorkeling in these passes is amazing. And if you time it right, when the current's helping you along, going in, you don't want to get blown out to sea. It's Superman's flight. You're just whisked along like a tumbleweed and enjoying all the sights as you go. It's just beautiful. So in the Tuamotus, we have seen many manta rays. These guys, they're upside down. That's why you're seeing the white on them. They just swim in these big arcs, feeding with their mouths open. They're eating microscopic organisms. These guys are 16 feet across. They're big and they're beautiful, and yeah, they're our most fun that we play with. The biggest thing we've ever seen, well, I'll let them speak for themselves.
Is there sound? I don't hear it.
Those are bubbles you're seeing.
There's no sound.
Sound on this part?
Yeah, there's sound on this part. Oh, okay. Okay, you can kill the sound again. Yeah.
That was with an underwater microphone you hung off the boat? Or?
No, that was Sarah's wonderful camera.
Underwater camera. Wow.
Yeah, so the question was how did we take that video? Sarah is quite the photography buff underwater now and above water. She's our chief communications officer, and so if you follow her on Facebook, you can see a lot of these videos.
And it's a Sony? No, Olympus. TG6.
Yeah, a friend of ours had one. It takes fantastic pictures. We got a case on it so we can take it scuba diving down to 100 feet. And
you get the sound through it too?
Yes,
Okay.
yeah, it picks up sound. So that was a pair, you could barely see the second one, of whales, humpback whales. The sound you were hearing was a singing male, which we were very lucky to be able to take in. That's rare. So beautiful, beautiful creatures. Hi, Andy, I didn't see you when you came in. We bumped into you in
I think we were down on
St. Croix,
St. Thomas.
St. Thomas.
Yeah.
I knew it was the U.S. Virgin Islands.
Right in the heart of COVID.
Yeah, right?
All right. And then just island life is a fascinating thing for us. So I'm just going to skip all of that and talk about the pictures. In the island chain of the Grenadines is the island of Moustique. Who's heard of Moustique? Okay, been there?
No.
Okay. Moustique has a house, has houses on it that are owned by the rich and famous. It's a private island. Mick Jagger, I think, still has his house there. Shania Twain, Kate Moss, people who can afford it have it on there. And there's a bar there called Basil's Bar. There's the name Basil. Basil has, for about 30 years now, been doing a fundraiser annually, the Moustique Blues Festival. And the beneficiary of his work are children in St. Vincent. He helps make sure they can get a good education. We've always marveled at how poorly advertised this thing is. We thought he could make a lot more money if he'd advertise it more. But I think, you know, when Shania Twain comes in and lays down some money for the kids, they do probably better than they would attracting a few more cruisers. But the Blues Festival is 3 days of fantastic music. And it's always a great time. Let's go ahead and move ahead one. And then on the island, oh, I'm sorry, this is on the island of Curacao. Curacao has the most amazing murals. A lot of these islands have a great mural culture. You know, graffiti that's truly artistic. And they actually encourage, of course, the local artists to come out and decorate their community. This is just on a highway abutment in Curacao. Beautiful sunsets and canyoning. This is on the island of Dominica. Dominica is in kind of the center of the Caribbean islands. They're right in between Martinique and Guadeloupe. And you'd think with French to the north of you and to the south of you, you could make better bread. They just ain't got it going on there. But what Dominica does have going for it is its natural beauty. Most of the Caribbean islands were formed by a single volcano. 9. It's just got this totally rough landscape. It's got an incredibly rich, fertile soil. They are the breadbasket of the Caribbean. When Irma came through and trashed a lot of islands, Dominica was one of the first islands to step up, even though it's a poor island, and start shipping food off. And then Maria came around and tore them apart. So it was a very unfortunate year for Dominica. But the hiking and the waterfalls are beautiful, and the people of the island are so proud of the island. They want to take you out and show you everything there is to see. And I'd encourage you to visit Dominica, even if it's just by an airplane sometime. So Sarah is about to jump off a waterfall. We spent 2 hours going through this set of canyons on this particular river. And every time we jump off a waterfall, you'd get up, turn around and look downstream and go, oh my gosh, that is incredibly beautiful vista. And we just kept saying it over and over again for about 4 hours. It's the most beautiful river we've ever seen in our lives.
Oh man.
This is Fatuhiva again in the Marquesas. The trees are dripping with fruit. And Grenada's got the same wonderful abundance of fruit. There's a woman who's a cruiser out of Canada. I can't remember, Montreal maybe? And she's also a foodie. And so she wanted to write a book on food of the Caribbean islands. And so she and her husband started living aboard. And when she got to Grenada, people were giving her mangoes and saying, please take these, I don't know what to do with them all. And so she wrote a book, and it's called The Embarrassment of the Mangoes. It's a good read if you ever get a chance to. But people will literally stop you on the street all the time and say, you know, did you go out to those trees over there and pick some, because they're free and they're just going to fall on the ground and rot. Somebody's got to eat them. Or they'll give you the fruit out of their backyards. And that is the Bay of Virgins on Fatuhiva. They say it's one of the prettiest bays in the world, and it's darn pretty. Cameras can't do this justice. I grimace a little bit when I look at these. It's jaw-dropping when you're actually in that environment. We really like the lifestyle. You all know that sailing is a great physical sport, especially on days with a lot of wind. It's also a great mental exercise, right? It's challenging, especially when you try to beat the next boat out by a few seconds around the race course. We add on top of all that the complexity of living off the grid and ocean navigation. biggest challenge that we faced in our crossing from, the longest crossing we've done from the Galapagos to French Polynesia, we had, it's downwind sailing. So of course we had the kite up. Am I hard to hear?
The last phrase you just said.
Going from the Galapagos to French Polynesia, we had the kite up virtually the entire time because it was spinnaker up. The spinnaker up.
Medical term, that's
Okay. We had the spinnaker up almost the entire time because it was such wonderful downwind sailing, and squalls would come through and make for some challenging evenings. And of course, they come through at night, never during the day. So that was a little bit of a challenge for us. But go ahead and go to the next one.
Yeah.
Sarah is also our chief navigation officer when it comes to navigating government bureaucracy. You go to some islands, checking in the French islands and the Caribbean couldn't be more pleasant. You walk into one of the stores that makes it available, you buy a beer, you sit down at the computer, you fill in the form, you pay your €3 and you're checked in. All right? There's other countries where it's an all-day affair and you meet 5 different offices to go through it all, and they all have little Napoleon complexes going on. So it's different. And Sarah, of course, goes in with her wonderful smile and has her act together. She does her homework in advance and knows exactly what they need. The paperwork's ready, and breezes us through as fast as anybody possibly could. Just to give you a little example of some of the bureaucracy we face, this is one of the atolls in the Tuamotus. It's the most popular one. It is the most fun one to visit. It's called Fakarava. And it's so popular that there's a lot of cruising boats in there, and they wanted to manage these cruising boats and where they would anchor and how long they would stay. So they came up with some rules, and they made charts and showed what the zones would be and what the rules would be. They just didn't tell anybody. And they also didn't account for the fact that they didn't allow enough space for even the cruising boats or the charter boats that exist in French Polynesia. So they had to go back to the drawing board.
Oh, that's I don't know what happened there.
So in the Tuamotus, I mentioned the island is gone, right? We just have the shoreline of the old island there. But inside the island, there are some surprises. I think that the Australians named them bommies. And they're just rock outcroppings. So you're sailing along, it's 90 feet deep, and all of a sudden, whoa, there's a piece of rock right at the surface, right? And these are so hard to, and they're not charted, so you gotta be just watching carefully the whole time. And then people actually share satellite maps that are geosynced into some software that we have. So we actually have them on a chart plotter to help us look for them, but it's no substitute for watching. We do know a beautiful, beautiful catamaran that had its rudders ripped off because he hit a bombie. So I bring it up in this picture because when you're anchoring in these areas, these rocks can present a real challenge. If you're swinging back and forth at anchoring your chain and your anchor chain is going over a giant rock, you're not going to sleep much at night, and you're also not going to have your anchor chain last as long. So what do? You float your anchor chain. So we have 3/8 inch galvanized anchor chain, and every about 18 feet or so, 7 meters, 20 feet, 22 feet, we put a pearl float. There's a lot of pearl farms that have previously existed in this area, and so these pearl floats can be found all over the place. You just have to trade a local guy for some rum for them, and you're all set. And so every time we anchor in the Tuamotus, we have to go through that little exercise. Boat maintenance and repair. You know, if you're going to move onto a boat, you need not only all the infrastructure that you had in your house, but you need your city's infrastructure behind it, right? Where's your power coming from? It's coming from your boat. You've got to make it yourself, and you've got to maintain all these systems. So there's a lot of complexity to it all, and Mother Nature wants to eat every last bit of it constantly. We have these giant cans of Corrosion X, and everything that's not stainless steel gets a liberal dousing with Corrosion X to make sure that that the connections stay good, or that it doesn't just disappear one day on us. And in the Caribbean, it's pretty easy to find some local professionals. You know, if your boat breaks down, you're 3 hours from shore, you've got a problem on your hands. But once you limp into shore, you can find a pro that can help you with pretty much anything. French Polynesia is the PhD of cruising. You got to know your own systems and know how to fix them yourself. And we have a room on the boat twice the size of that table and that deep, and it's jammed full of spare parts. So we can fix anything on the boat that might be a critical system. So you've seen the movie Apollo 13?
Yep.
Okay, and there was a bunch of teams all split up thinking about, well, how do we deal with this system and that system and that system? And when they were all done arguing over their priorities, the guys who were responsible for power stood up and said, power is everything. Without power, we have no navigation systems. We have no ability to fire our rockets. We have no life support. Power is everything. Well, the same is true on a boat. And so you want to make sure that you've got a really solid system. And the latest innovation now are lithium batteries. Everybody wants lithium on their boat because lithium is life-changing. All you people here who want to go cruising someday, if you don't have lithium on the boat that you buy, plan on making that your first upgrade. It can drink every bit of power you can deliver to it. So when your solar panels are soaking up sun at the peak of the day, you're not going to be limited by how fast your batteries can drink. Okay? Lithium is life-changing, and they can source tremendous amount of power as well. Yes, we have a washing machine on board. I'm going to... We didn't initially. There are people who drag clothes behind their boat. There are people who put them in a bucket with some water and a plunger and clean them that way. What we were doing is we were going off to find Joe's laundry shop. Well, it's a whole day affair, which we'll talk about going out and provisioning, and you'll understand better why it's a whole day affair. French Polynesia or South Pacific ain't going to happen, so we had to have ability to keep our clothes clean. Anyway. So you've got all those systems on the board, plus you've got all the things that every sailboat has, and the scale and cost of those systems go far beyond what you experience on a J22. So we work our tails off keeping the boat in good operating order. It's not all rum and bananas, as a friend of ours said. So what's provisioning day like? I'm just going to read this list. You get up in the morning and check the weather and tides. That's not new because we do that every morning. You get your dry bags, your grocery bags, your backpacks, and sometimes you got to put on foulies. You launch the dinghy, motor to a dock. Maybe it's a dinghy dock. Maybe it's a cargo ship dock that you've got to crawl up a giant ladder. Maybe it's a rickety wooden dock that you're risking your life to go on, and it's got nails sticking out all over the place that might punch a hole in the side of your dinghy. Next slide. Or you can anchor off, which is what we prefer to do. It just means wading in and being a little wet during the day. Then you got to walk to a grocery store, maybe you catch a bus or thumb a ride, whatever you do, and you hit the chandleries, the hardware store, the pharmacies, all the errands you want to get in the day. Get your lunch in the middle of the day, and then go out and do the rest of the errands. Haul it all back to the dinghy, loading in. You got to protect it from spray or maybe the rain squall that's going to come through when you're going back. Motor back to the mothership, unload the dinghy, eradicate the bugs. All this wonderful fresh produce that we're getting is loaded with local insects. And once again, Sarah to the rescue. She's got all the right formula to make sure that our food is clean. She's our chemistry major. Put it all away, haul the dinghy, get it secured back on board, celebrate the accomplishment over happy hour, and have dinner and go to bed. It's way different than running down to the local grocery store. I can't emphasize enough how important it is that if you're a cruising couple, you are co-captains and you are equal partners in it. There are countless examples. We meet people where the guy knows how to sail or the lady knows how to sail, and their crew that's on the boat with them can't spell sail. They know nothing. We know at least 2 examples where the person that knew how to sail fell off the boat when the boat was under sail, and their significant other had no clue what to do. And so now they're sailing off to nowhere, going to run into something at some point, and their spouse is drowning. Okay? You have to know, each person has to know how to single hand the boat and has to know how to do an MOB recovery. The other thing to do is agree to a set of rules. We thought it through very carefully. We've gone so far as to customize how the jack lines are these lines that run on the boat in certain areas that you can clip a line, a safety tether onto, and that tether then connects to a harness that you wear, and it keeps you from falling off the boat. Well, if it's right next to the water and you fall overboard and it's long enough that you can get in the water, 6 knots of boat speed, and you're dragged underwater and you'll just drown right alongside your boat. Or you release your tether so you don't drown, but then you just drown a little while later. Anyway, so we modified the system so that our boat is as safe as we could conceive of making it. We set very strict rules. When only one of us is in the cockpit, we're clipped in. Absolutely never vary from that rule. And if we have some major change to do, change the sail configuration, for example, knock on the room even though your partner's sleeping and say, hey, we need to make this change. Please come and help me do it. I made the mistake once of not doing it, sailing downwind and 30 knots of wind. I did an accidental jibe, broke the stack pack, and spent the next hour or so in driving rain, Sara motoring the boat back upwind while I lashed the sail, the main, back onto the boom because it was not usable. Oh, it broke the reefing line too. It was a good rule early on, or good reminder early on to follow those rules to the letter. So make your decisions together and abide by them. Monohull versus a multi-hull. We live on a multi-hull, but we're not biased. We've spent more time on monohulls than we have on a multi-hull. But for the style of living that we have, a multi-hull makes more sense for us. It gives you more living space. You need a reasonable amount of space if it's your home. And if you get in a little tiff and you want to get in your opposite corner of the boat, you actually need a corner to go to. Our galley and saloon are up on that bridge deck area, and so we have a nice panoramic view. There's less rolling at anchor. You can actually have a glass of wine with a piece of stemware with wine in it in maybe a 3-foot roll, and it's not going to be a problem. Well, imagine that on a monohull. Boats are faster. They tend to be faster, 12 to 15 knots of wind. Our boat will do 9.5 to 10 knots for 24 hours in good wind conditions. We like the redundancy of the twin hulls and the twin diesels. We actually had a little water ingress in one of the sail drives in the last 3 months before we came here. And we were driving around with one engine for a while when we needed to use an engine. It's challenging, but if you've only got one engine, you don't even have that option. And then there are performance multi-hulls, trimarans and catamarans that have these things called dagger boards. Dagger board is just this long board that you can sink down, and it goes down to maybe 9 feet below the boat and provides you a much better ability to sail upwind. Okay, so if you want a performance boat, they're out there. They're a lot more pricey though. The monohull advantages, I probably could have made the list longer on this side, but anyway, you can actually point to weather. It's really sweet. We have about 100-degree tacking angle, and that's pretty miserable, right? And our boat performs better than other most of the popular cruising catamarans. Better light air performance, more sail controls. After you've raced for 10 years, you want to be able to make some adjustments. There ain't much to adjust. We don't have an outhaul. You can't have a vang on a catamaran because the boat can't heel. And so if you get a big gust and you overload the rig, in fact, the insurance companies require you to change the shrouds, all the stays on a catamaran every 10 years because they get such tremendous loads. The monohull is more comfortable sailing in choppy seas, and you don't have hull slap. So imagine our two hulls with this bridge deck over them, right? It's about 2.5 feet off the water. So when you're in 8-foot seas, bam, on the bottom of the hull every 30 seconds. And we swear the boat's going to just break itself into pieces. It's a testament to how strong fiberglass is. Everything in the saloon jumps. We have to have everything tied down to make sure things aren't going to fly around. Anyway, hull slap is just obnoxious. Anytime you're going upwind, you're going to have that. And of course, lastly, and the biggest advantage of a multi-hull is you just look cool. There's no such thing as a sexy multi-hull. Things we learned along the way. I'm not going to go through all these, but if you're going to do what we try to do, charter a boat before you buy it. Because unless you get on board a boat for a couple of weeks, you don't have a clue what it's like to live on board that boat. And then spend the extra money for quality. We see so many people, the lithium upgrade that we're doing. Lithium is fantastic. You make a mistake or a failure, lithium can burn your boat down, okay? Fiberglass will burn fast. So you want to have quality in that power system. And there's a lot of cheap manufacturers of
from other countries.
of lithium. There is a wonderful app that you can start looking at now called No Foreign Land, and it's crowd-sourced sharing of information amongst cruisers. You'll find it a lot of fun. You could also get on WhatsApp. WhatsApp is a communications app. It's super popular outside the United States. Why it's not used much here, I don't know. But that's how all of us communicate. When we were sailing to the Marquesas, there was a group of about 25 or so boats that were all moving together, and we had contact. We set ourselves up with a communications group where we could all chat with each other. It was called the March to the Marquesas. And we all had Starlink. And it was critical that we were able to keep in good communication with each other, and I'll explain why right here. Starlink is the other big piece of infrastructure you want to have. Starlink saves lives. We know multiple boats. We know instances of multiple boats that have sank. And they got word out to fellow cruisers through Starlink that they were going into their life raft, and they got picked up by a fellow cruiser within an hour or less, as opposed to your EPIRB goes off, the Coast Guard in the States gets the information, calls the local authorities, they find a freighter that's nearby, get the freighter to divert, and maybe 20 hours later this thing that's 800 feet long comes and tries to scoop you up out of the water. Right? We had friends in this group going to the Marquesas, got word out on WhatsApp, their rudder post had broken. It was a Swedish boat, and we saw pictures of it later. When the rudder post broke near the top, now it's doing this, and just opening a bigger and bigger and bigger hole in the boat. And the rudder's still in place, so how are you going to plug that? And so they tried for about an hour, and then they gave up and made the heart-wrenching decision that they had to abandon their boat, get their ditch kit together, and get their life raft launched, climbed into it. But they had gotten word to some other boats in the WhatsApp group, and it was another Swedish boat that was in front of them and a Swedish boat behind them that both came on scene. And the boat that ended up pulling them out of their life raft arrived on scene just as the mast was going under. That's a YouTube video on this, isn't it?
It's on YouTube, yeah.
Do you know the name of that?
You can look for it.
Yeah, we can. So it happened in the month of March in 2024 in the area between the Galapagos Islands and the Marquesas, and it was a Swedish boat. Shop around for your insurance and read your policy word for word. And so I've shopped, and I'm getting a quote from this company and this company and this company and reading 3 sets of policies. But boy, the coverage is all over the map. The prices are all over the map. You really want to do your homework on it. Be prepared to scuba dive an anchor. Your anchor's down in 70 feet of water, and it gets fouled. What are you going to do? You got to go down there and get it free. I had to do that. I haven't had to do that often, but I had to do that just in the last month before we came down here. There's a resource called Nigel Calder. If you've read most sailing magazines that talk about maintaining boats, you've heard the name Nigel Calder. The guy's a guru from Andy's home country. And he has a book called The Boat Owner's Electrical Mechanical Handbook. Have that Bible on your boat. Gideon's not going to leave it. You want to buy your own copy of it. Get your own weather routing software. People hire weather routers, and they hire them for good reason. When we leave French Polynesia and we head west, we're going into the more significantly inclement weather areas of the South Pacific, we will get a professional weather router. But we're still going to do our own weather routing and compare notes with that person. It forces you to learn weather. And weather can make your sails pleasant, or they can kick your butt, and so, or worse. So I really advocate for getting your own weather routing software, and there's several products out there. Let's move on.
Yep.
So our favorite experiences, festivals. So the island of Bequia, they do a music festival every year in January, and anybody who's listened to steel drum music just loves it. That sweet tone that you get. This guy makes a steel drum come alive. He's like the Jimi Hendrix of the steel drum. He can play these rapid fire things, and all of a sudden he's just wailing away, and all of a sudden you realize he's playing some rock band song, and it's just really cool to watch. But the people of Bequia are at these things, so you're side by side on the dance floor with all the locals, and it's just a really great time to interact with people. In the St. Martin Heineken Regatta, we've seen the headliners UB40 one year. We saw Shaggy one year. It's a great party.
Fun time.
The island of Martinique, French island, celebrates Carnival in style. I put these pictures up because they're tame. I figured it might be a family event. But I see there's no children here old enough to understand what I'm saying. So any man who has any inclination to put on a lacy thong and parade around the streets in high heels with fingernail polish on does it during Carnival in Martinique. The people watching is fabulous. Going through the Panama Canal was a fantastic experience. Our day started at 4 o'clock in the morning when we had to leave the marina and get on station. They put advisors, one advisor on the boat with you. We actually got two because it was a trainee situation. So here was our advisor. They have no legal responsibility. If you run into something, it's your problem and your money involved. But boy, when they tell you what to do, you listen careful because it's non-trivial going through with a 700-foot boat in the same lock as you're in. We had some friends come down and help us with that. Go ahead. And they were going to be here tonight, but something came up and they couldn't come. But Chris Nimmer and Carrie Anton were on board. And then the people who own that big skydiving school were also on board. If you want to go through the Panama Canal, people are looking for crew. Some boats have to actually hire local line handlers. And so we had the benefit of a friend asking us to help them. So we went through once before we had to take our own boat through. But it's quite an experience. This is the webcam of the Miraflores locks. So these were our lock buddies. This guy, this tug was not tugging this boat. He was just had to get to the Pacific Ocean, so he was going through the locks with us. And there's our little boat. Aren't we cute? They were behind us on the way up as you're ascending. So there's 3 sets of locks on the Caribbean side and 3 sets of locks on the Pacific side, and in between is Lake Gatun. And Lake Gatun is the watershed that feeds the locks. Right? They've actually been reduced traffic for the last several years because it's not getting enough rainfall. And as we went upwards from the Caribbean side towards Lake Gatun, he was behind us. And there's nothing more intimidating than watching this giant thing come in, and you hope to heck that they can stop the boat in time before they run you over and squash you like a cork.
So they don't use a tugboat to get that huge boat?
You see these guys?
Oh, yeah, okay.
Yeah.
These are like railroad trains, but they're purpose-built specifically for taking boats through. So they actually have cables running from the boats, and they've got tensioning systems. Yeah.
Did you pay a toll to go through the Panama?
Oh yeah. Did we pay a toll to go through? It was not inexpensive.
It was not.
$3,000? $4,000?
No, it was under 3.
Under 3?
Yeah.
Under 3. So it's somewhere in the $2,000 to $3,000 range.
Do you think about going around?
No. The Galapagos Islands were amazing. a lot of people, oddly, choose to skip it because it's a logistical hassle. They have got so many rules. We had to have the boat fumigated. We had to have the bottom of the boat professionally scrubbed so that it was clean, because they don't want any foreign organisms coming into their waters, okay? And so we had to go through that rigmarole, but it was worth it. You can stay for a month or extend and stay for 2 months. The first night we were there, we looked around and said, why on earth are we not planning to extend? So we ended up staying. We stayed for 6 weeks. The island of San Cristobal has 4,000 of these guys on it. Sea lions are everywhere.
That's our boat, yep.
Yeah, that's our boat. And so they are notorious for wanting to climb on a boat and just go and soak up the sun, right? So we've got fenders and jerry jugs and some floaties, anything we could put in there, and then some fabric up here, because we heard that fabric will frighten them off. Nothing works. It was sleepless nights. You know, it's like, okay, it's your turn to go scare them away, because they'll climb on whatever space they can find on the back of your boat, and then their buddy is trying to get them out of the way so they can be up there too. So they're barking at each other at 3 o'clock in the morning. So it was a couple of sleepless nights, but it was exquisitely beautiful. The land tortoises, the sea turtles, the scuba diving was quite excellent. There's the only population of equatorial penguins in the world. Humboldt penguins live there.
What time of year were you there?
We were there in
Late February, early
yeah, late
March.
Feb through March. A couple weeks of March.
What's that picture of that person?
So it's a carving. In French Polynesia, they call them tikis. I don't know if they have their own name in the Galapagos, but you know, earlier civilizations would make rock carvings, and for various reasons. There was not a lot of all the professionals that are telling you about the sights to see in the Galapagos are telling you about the living creatures. They really didn't have much to say about these, but we thought he looked cool, so he got his picture taken. So that's the Pacific Ocean. French Polynesia's like somewhere around here.
Here's Hawaii.
Okay, that's Hawaii. That's got to be the Tuamotus area there.
Yeah.
The Marquesas are up here. French Polynesia is so spread out. Everybody knows Tahiti and the Society Islands, Bora Bora, and the like. About 5 days sail away is the Marquesas up to the northeast, and then the Tuamotus are off to the east from the Society Islands, and there's a couple more archipelagos, the Gambiers and the other one we didn't go to because it's too cold down there.
Australs.
The Australs, well done. If you lay that out on a map, it covers continental Europe. But they're so tiny islands and they're so spread out, you can't even see them unless you zoom in. But we sailed 3,000 nautical miles to the Marquesas from the Galapagos. It was a beautiful sail, except for the squalls. And you know, in the Caribbean, you don't need a spinnaker in the Caribbean. The Caribbean, you're sailing. All those islands are basically running kind of north-south, right? And the winds are out of the east, and so you're sailing close haul to close reach all the time.
Was it just the two of you that did that?
Yes. Yeah.
Well, how did you man the boat with just the two of you, day and night?
Yeah, we did.
Ask the question.
Oh yeah. So the question was, were we just the two of us on board for this sail, and how did we manage that if it was just the two of us? It was just the two of us. A lot of people do take crew along, and we had plenty of opportunity because we could have called a lot of experienced sailors that we know to come, but that's more people to feed. And having food for 20 days on board that's conveniently accessible is non-trivial. So, and we just like the solitude of it. And so anyway, we did it by ourselves. We did 4-hour shifts, and the boat's well equipped for it. We've got radar, we've got AIS, and so we have good awareness of what's our surroundings. And we saw one other boat the entire time.
Yeah, we saw a big oyster that went flying past us. And that was the only guy we saw.
So you both couldn't go to sleep at once and just automate it somehow?
So if you're on watch and you're dead dog tired,
Right.
you look at the radar, you look at the sky, you look for squall clouds that might be approaching, you look for any lights on the horizon that by some chance aren't showing up on radar or AIS. And if you've convinced yourselves that the coast is completely clear, go put a 15-minute or 20-minute alarm on your phone and go lie down and get a little shut-eye. We'll do that.
In the cockpit.
Yeah. I mean, you're going 8-9 knots, so you're not going to converge on anything that fast.
Right.
And so you can safely lay down for 20 minutes and you will not, if you were diligent and there was nothing out there in that radius that you can monitor, you're not going to hit anything.
So you're saying it's pretty easy then?
Yeah.
I mean, it has its challenges. I'll tell you what, a 48-hour passage is more grueling. Because on this long of a passage, you get into a rhythm, your sleep schedule just changes, and you become accustomed to sleeping in those intervals, and it really isn't that difficult.
Take power naps. You take power naps.
Well, when you're not on watch, you lay down and try and get as much sleep as you can in those 4 hours. Yeah. So your body gets accustomed to it.
Did you consider convoying at all?
Well, so again, there was a group of about 20 some boats that were all going around the same time, but we were spread out over 1,000 nautical miles, but we were in communication with each other, so we had that security net. Even if two boats left at the same time, it doesn't take that long with your different speed. I mean, unless you deliberately slowed the faster boat down, but when you've got to cover 3,000 nautical miles, the idea of slowing down is just ludicrous. So it was a convoy of sorts, but it's just a far spread convoy.
So you're on the radio quite a bit with your buddies that are spread out. You're on the Starlink. And
We're in Starlink and WhatsApp chat communication. Your VHF range is like 24 nautical miles at best.
so you're able to communicate.
Yes, yeah, and we did. Ryan?
Was your solar able to support all your electricity needs? Or did you
Yes, yeah.
Repeat.
Well, was our solar able to keep up with our power needs? We had reasonable amount of sun each day, but so I'm an electrical engineer, so I've got an advantage on this front. So I designed our lithium system and spec'd out our solar system, and we jammed as much. We've got about 2,000 watts of solar on the boat, and so that keeps up pretty well.
Does Starlink support voice calls if you needed to speak to somebody about something like
If you need to speak to Starlink themselves?
No, if you
Voice over internet.
Yeah.
Okay, so the question is, can we do a phone call over Starlink? Starlink is faster than the service you have at your house. We do Zoom calls over Starlink.
We do
video
Zoom calls. We watch football games. We watch movies on Netflix. We can do everything as long as it's not raining hard. Starlink can do it all.
Yeah.
So you need a subscription.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's a subscription.
The rules get changed from time to time because Starlink is still a very new technology and a new system, and the company's still trying to figure out what they want to do.
How much is this subscription?
Well, it was. We were paying. So we actually changed our service plan to be out of New Zealand because that was cheaper than the United States. And there's a lot of ins and outs and a lot of rules to how you do it, but we were paying about $120 a month, I think, for it.
So it's comparable.
But it's about to. They're changing the rules now.
Okay.
And and there's a lot of questions about, Starlink's not the best at getting their rules clearly communicated, but it looks like it's going to be like in the $250 to $400 range for us going forward.
A month.
A month. Yeah, so it's going to get expensive. We'll continue to do it. We
may watch less movies.
We watch less movies. Yeah. We have an unlimited plan right now. The new plan will be about, I think it's $300 a month, and that's based on 50 gigabytes of data, which is not a tremendous amount of data. You're not going to do Zoom calls and stuff with that. Yeah. So anyway.
There's also a European constellation coming online, but they're still strictly commercial.
Yeah, there's multiple competitors planning, and so hopefully in the next 5 years we'll see some competition that'll help keep the prices more reasonable. That's the Southern Cross, by the way, which you can actually see from the Caribbean. If you're down, I think you can see it in Dominica, about halfway down the Caribbean. Keep going.
Yep.
And so we got to cross the equator on the way down. We're no longer shellbacks. And so when you cross the equator, you have to celebrate with champagne, and you have to pour a little overboard as an honor to Neptune. And so we did the ritual. That was the first time we ever hove to on a catamaran. But we did. We blew over the line at 8 knots, and then oh shoot, we got to go back. So we went back, hove to, and had our celebratory drink. This is the island of Nuka-Hiva. Another beautiful. The Marquesas are the youngest of the islands of French Polynesia, so they the opposite extreme of the atolls of the Tuamotus, right? They're beautiful, young, fertile islands. They produce a lot of food, and it's beautiful living there.
Were they caused by volcanoes then?
Mm-hmm.
Yes. Yeah, they're all volcanic. Go ahead.
Wrong button.
So in the Tuamotus, we came first to the island of Rararia. This is a plaque that commemorates the landing of the Kon-Tiki. The Kon-Tiki came ashore in the island. Actually, the Kon-Tiki kind of just crashed ashore. They really didn't have great controls. And they actually blew by a couple of islands that they had wanted to get to. But there's a documentary on it if you care to watch it. But Thor Heyerdahl's son put that plaque in place on Rararia. So I've already described earlier what an atoll looks like. So this is a view sitting at anchor in an atoll. They really offer some of the most beautiful anchorages we've ever been in. Let's go ahead and go forward. And you remember those? One slide to cover first. So on the atoll of Rangiroa, this is not a dolphin encounter experience that we paid money for. We were scuba diving. We're down about 60 feet. And this dolphin just swims up to us.
Looks like Flipper.
Yeah, pretty much.
He snuggled like a puppy. And we got to pet him. So that was a fun dolphin encounter. So I described the atolls as having those bommies in them. Well, there's one very beautiful atoll with a big bommie in it. And I'll show you our encounter with that.
What do I do to get to the video?
Go ahead and give it a click.
Another click?
Yep.
Okay.
So this is the Amanu Atoll in the eastern area of the Tuamotus, which we videoed with our drone. It's about 17 miles on one axis and about 4 miles on the other axis. So it's a whole lot of nothing but that strip of sand and coral. But one big bommie in the middle. It's called the Navel of Amanu. And it provides nice coverage if the wind's out of the right direction, so we decided to visit it. And had a little fun with our drone.
Yeah.
Do you have a drone to do that?
Yeah. I bought, and here's our anchoring, right? You can see why we have our anchor chain floated. You see those little white dots? Those are our floats holding it up over those rocks.
Can you explain that, floating the anchor chain? How does that actually work?
You have to have devices that are sufficiently buoyant to hold up 3/8 inch chain. Right?
Yeah.
And so, we have tied them onto carabiners, and so as Sara is letting out the anchor chain, she reaches over and clips the carabiner on and sends it out. We have to do some quick math before, because you want to know how deep you're dropping in and put the first one at like 1.5 times that depth, and then every about 7 meters after that.
Beach, then, more or less?
I'm sorry? What was your question?
It's to anchor on the beach, more or less?
No, the anchor's not on the beach. The boat would have to be able to go up on the beach in order to put the anchor on the beach, unless I got off and carried it, and it's pretty dang heavy.
Yeah, I think here it was in about, 12 feet of water, maybe 15, the anchor was in?
Yeah, something like that.
But it protects you from getting hooked on the structure underwater.
So the anchor itself? So we love being able to anchor in about, so is everybody hearing the questions? I'm not doing a very good job of repeating them. What do we do to make sure our anchor doesn't get hung up in the rocks? We can float the chain, but the anchor itself obviously has to be in the sand, right? So we love it when we can find a good anchorage where we can bring the boat into maybe 10, 12 feet of water. We only draft 3, so we can get in pretty close. But you got to be careful because a wind shift is going to swing you around and maybe swing you into that shoal water. So it's a balancing act. But if we're in 10, 12, 15 feet in this crystal clear water, you can see the bottom. And you can decide, okay, here's a nice runway that we think's nice and clear and wide, and we can drop the anchor there. But we've had plenty of blind drops, and you just drop it on faith. And we've had a couple of occasions where I've had to go free dive the anchor and get it out of the mess. And the one time recently that I had to do it scuba diving, the anchor was just on top of this giant boulder, and there was boulders all around, and so I had to just like for about 20 minutes going on the air in my tank and get it out of the rock field.
In what depth of water were you?
That was probably about 45 feet or something like that. Yeah.
So you have to stay in good shape.
Yes, but that's, I mean, yeah, you do. I mean, the lifestyle supports it. It's that darn rum consumption that works against it.
Do you guys use your drone ever to like scout out in front of you? Or is it just for fun?
It's just for fun. It's conceivable, but I mean, it's putsy to do that. And Sarah would have to be, driving the boat around or drive the drone. One of us has to keep the boat under control while the other one does it. No, we've never done it. I'd never even thought about doing it. I'm close to the end, so let's go ahead and just get to the end and get into questions.
I think that is.
I've got a nice little. I am at the end. Thank you. Bring up that slide. Thank you very much. It was a lot of fun to share our experiences with you, and we hope that you learned some things out of it. Now we'll get into questions, and while we're doing the questions, Sarah takes a lot of pictures. I'm camera inept, and so it was running when you came in, so you may have already seen all these, but you might enjoy some views. Lois had her hand up first.
So I want Sarah to talk about her experiences.
Well done. Well done.
There we go, let's get that.
This is what really happens.
What do you want to know specifically? This is why I don't do presentations.
All right, so tell us about your most favorite experiences over 24 hours, and then tell us what you wish you hadn't learned.
I wish I hadn't learned.
Well, make it up, Sarah.
Make it up.
I know. I don't even
Never let the truth get in the way of a good story.
I don't know. Yeah, I don't even know how to answer that. I don't know how to answer that.
I do.
Yeah. What?
While you're thinking about.
No, go ahead. I don't want to.
Oh, you don't want to?
No.
This is not her comfort zone. So, but over a cocktail, you can totally get that answer, which we're due to do. I'm sorry, there's a gentleman back here. Yeah, Mike.
Any classes that you took, first aid, ASA classes that
Great question.
and others that you took that you wish you hadn't wasted your time?
Okay, so I did take the ASA classes in 1995 and got bootstrapped on sailing. But again, and I think that people should do that. You got to start somewhere. But another alternative is to be rail meet out here and learn to sail out on the lake. But what you do get out of those classes that you're not going to learn just crewing on a race boat is they do talk about navigation with advanced instrumentation and boat maintenance and repair. But obviously that's just a gloss over that you get. But that was worthwhile. We took a safety. Or a medicine class. We couldn't get a marine medicine class, but we got a wilderness medicine class. And
yeah, the class we taught was put on by REI, and it was the organization was Knowles, and we found it to be pretty good. It was a lot more safety in the woods and what happens if you find somebody who's been injured or with somebody who was injured. But there was still some nuggets that we took away and some things we thought made sense to put on board to have in our safety kits, our med kits.
And then one last class to mention, when we raced Angelina in the Chicago Mac in 2016, it was required that several of the crew complete a safety at sea classes. So we took a 2-day safety at sea class. That was invaluable, especially having the experience of actually getting into a life raft and knowing what that experience is like. Fortunately, we've never had to do that since then.
All right, so what I want to know is like, what's like the worst weather experience you've ever had and how you got out of it and how to avoid hurricanes?
Okay, what's the worst weather experience we've ever had, and how do we avoid hurricanes? So we work hard to stay out of bad conditions. We study the weather. All our cruising buddies study the weather, and when we get together for cocktails, we talk about weather. So, I mean, weather is the center of our lives. And so we've gotten reasonably good at having a set of forecasting sources that we reference. And we just stay out of harm's way and find a good protected anchorage depending on what direction the next storm might be coming from.
So by studying closely, you're able to just avoid it?
So far.
Okay.
I mean, there's no guarantee, right? Nature will do what nature wants to do. How do we avoid hurricanes?
We go to Minnesota during cyclone season is what we do. It's cyclone season right now.
What's a cyclone?
Yeah, it's a hurricane. It's a hurricane in the Pacific. It's a cyclone.
Yeah. So, I mean, I could talk for quite a while about weather, and I'm going to keep moving, but in the end, if anybody wants me to come back to that, we can talk about some of our sources.
Okay.
How often do you haul out or clean them up?
We do not haul out to clean the bottom. We clean the bottom. It depends on where we are. Panama, oh my God, I've never seen so much stuff grow on a boat so fast in my life. And in French Polynesia, stuff grows very, very slowly on the boat. We have a product called copper coat.
All right.
Copper coat is an epoxy. It's like VC17 made out of epoxy. It's impregnated with copper, and it can last a decade.
Oh.
Now, in practice, I mean, ours, like at 5 years, we did touch-ups on it. But copper coat helps a lot to keep the stuff at bay. Yeah.
You did like a really long cruise, and sometimes the wind dies. So you can predict the weather mostly, but what happens when you've got a long spell and you're looking at the weather and gosh, it's like a 3-day sail to get out of this doldrums into some wind.
Yep.
How does that work? Do you have are you going to buy some electric motors or something since your boat seems to be going electric?
No, we bought jerry jugs is what we did. We put extra diesel in them. We boosted our diesel capacity by about 25%. So when we left Panama for the Galapagos, we have to cross the equator. So the equator is the warmest part of the Earth. And the warmest part of the Earth is a constant high pressure system. Because it's warm, the air is always rising in the area, right? And that means doldrums. Right. And one of the biggest stretches of the doldrums is pretty close to Central America. So we knew we were going to go through an area where we could count on winds dying on us. And then they throw squalls in just to make it interesting. So it's a wonderful area.
Diesel power is backup.
So we have twin diesels on the boat. Mm-hmm. We carry 100 gallons of diesel, and we filled jerry jugs with an extra 25 gallons. We did not need them. We actually had pretty decent weather. I think we only had the motor for about
18 hours.
18 hours? Mm-hmm. Yeah. So, but we have friends who motored for days. And we know of a boat that ran out of fuel and had to have other people come to their rescue and have some fuel. Yeah.
How do you guys, I'm talking about personal finances, but how do you guys do it globally? Because you cash in on your corporate jobs and go sailing, and you turn 70 out of, how does that whole thing work out?
Okay.
I'm not talking about personal stuff. I'm just talking about, how would someone do that?
Repeat the question.
Okay, so the question is you quit your job, you're in retirement, and you leave the United States. And what is life like trying to live? Am I capturing that correctly?
Financially.
Yeah. Financially, it doesn't really make any difference. I mean, there's ATMs, and we get cash, and we have credit cards, and there's no difference in terms of conducting our day-to-day life.
No, I'm saying, where do you get the money? I mean, you can do an ATM from a bankrupt account. I mean, you have to have inputs to your accounts. How does that work?
Inputs to money.
Well, now that we're retired, it's investment earnings
You're talking about
that we have.
controlling the investments, or?
I mean, you have a base, right? I mean,
Sure. Like
So-
all retired people,
Yeah, yeah.
you know, we financially planned so that we could retire, and now we're drawing down on our life's earnings. Yeah, just like other retired people.
John, they don't have a house payment
Your
anymore.
life's earnings.
Yeah.
We don't have a house. We don't have a house. We don't have cars. Yeah, the kids are grown and gone and make their own money.
This is a cheaper lifestyle.
Yeah,
than
that's
if we had a house.
my question. So if you guys could put it up like yearly, I mean,
Yeah, how much
you know,
is-
how much more or less would you consider for a yearly
Yeah, what's a yearly budget?
budget for living in a boat and doing this?
Yeah, so how much does it cost
Yeah.
for a year living aboard a boat? That's a really tough question to answer because there's so many different ways to do it.
Yes.
There's some boats out there we call project boats or living the dream boats, and it's like they're living on a shoestring budget, and they're getting by and they're having fun too. So, you know, and I'm sure they're doing it for a fraction of what we spend. And our data point, I can't say we spend this much on the boat. I can tell you how much we burn in a year doing everything we do. And we do a lot of travel. It's not a lot, but we do travel up. So we wanted a vacation. We've been on the boat for
Almost a year and a half.
a year and a half, and we said enough. We need a break. So we were in Argentina for 6 weeks before we came here. So so our annual budget is about $150,000 a year to pay for our lifestyle. And again, that includes travel and I
Drinking.
problem. So, yeah, we did very well on that.
You get free food when you go to these islands, don't you?
Yeah.
You live frugal. You probably live off 150. More than that.
So the question is, what percentage of the time,
Yeah.
10 years.
what percentage of the time are we underway versus at anchor?
That's
Yeah, it's a great question, and I would say we're not underway very much. We get to an island and we want to stay there and enjoy it. And you know, when we hit Braveria, our first experience in the Tuamotus, it was so enchanting. And these are whales. No,
these are pilot whales.
pilot whales off the coast of the Pearl Islands in. No, that's a humpback.
That's a humpback.
Anyway. So you want to enjoy that island, so you might decide to stay 2 weeks there, you might decide to stay 2 months there. Okay? And so we are not sailing all the time. Brian?
Is she currently on the hard, and what concerns do you have leaving your home in different places scattered around the world?
She is currently on the hard.
Repeat the
in
question.
Hiva-Oa is in the Marquesas. The Marquesas have never been hit by a cyclone. It's just outside the belt. It's at 10 degrees south, and so it's pretty safe. And the eastern Pacific just doesn't have cyclones. There are other areas, it's a whole different story. It could be, so we try and stay outside the zone when we leave the boat. Yeah.
You're basically, that's French Polynesia where you are?
Yes, we are in French Polynesia.
And then
right now.
where's next? You headed further west? You
Yes.
going around the world?
Yeah, good question. Around the world, I probably won't live that long. So we take everything like a year or two at a time. Because it takes tremendous planning just to figure out what these places are like and where you want to go and what's safe and what's not safe. So there's to the west of French Polynesia are the Cook Islands. They're difficult to visit logistically, but there's a beautiful island called Nui, which is very much like the Cook Islands but independent of them. And so we're just going to go to Nui and make that our Cook Islands experience. And we'll spend, I don't know, we'll stay as long as we keep having fun. And then we're going to go to Tonga. So some good friends of ours we own hull number 28 of the Voyage 440. and they own hull number 26. And they met us because they saw our boat, said they wanted to introduce themselves, and then they were astonished to see Bayfield, Wisconsin on the back of the boat. That's what we fly her out of. They're from St. Paul, Minnesota. And we said, wow, actually we're from St. Paul, Minnesota. They're 15 minutes away from us. So anyway, where was I going with that? They circumnavigated, sort of. When they got to Thailand, they put the boat on a freighter and sent it to the Met. And the Indian Ocean is everything it's cracked up to be. It's challenging, and piracy is a real issue. So anyway, so will we do that? I don't think we'll live long. I'll live long enough to make it to beyond Australia.
Have you ever sailed like between like Seattle and Alaska, all those islands that are in there on the Pacific Northwest?
So where have we? He's asking if we've sailed the Pacific Northwest. Where we have sailed, we bought the boat in Florida. We went up and down the Caribbean island chain 4 or 5 times, and then went and did the ABCs. So off the coast of Venezuela is the Dutch Islands, and then we went to Panama. And through the Panama Canal, through the Galapagos, and then
You stay where it's warm.
We like it where it's warm.
Yeah, we like it where it's warm.
Yeah.
You mentioned pirates briefly. I understand the ABCs can have a little bit of pirate issues too.
Venezuela is a very poor country, right? And so poor country is where desperation can be found, and you do hear some things. The Dutch have got a really strong Coast Guard presence there. Those islands are pretty well protected. Pretty rare that you see events there. Trinidad and Grenada, there was a real challenge for a while of Venezuelans attacking cruisers that were going between Trinidad and Grenada. So people would get together and do a little convoy, and actually could get escorts sometimes. Where it gets really serious is, of course, near the Red Sea, and then the Straits of Malacca and places around Indonesia, which is too bad because Indonesia is the most beautiful scuba diving in the world. You just got to be careful and be aware. In the Caribbean, there's a thing called the Caribbean Safety and Security Network. It's a website. You can look it up, and that's where people report incidents. And so you can look at that, and they keep statistics, so you can know, okay, St. Lucia is a pretty island, but it's got its issues with some attacks. So,
Thanks for posting all the stuff on Facebook that you did.
Yeah.
Probably our
That's
communication officer.
Yeah. Sara,
Thank you.
My favorite was one of you guys and like 4 other couples having a barbecue on a desert island somewhere. That just captured it for me. I want to hear from both of you. Do you have a favorite picture or favorite posting that you did?
Oh my gosh.
You got a favorite posting?
I have so many. It's hard to pick.
What we've done makes it hard to answer that question.
Yeah, I know exactly what he's talking about, though. We were with Patricia Ann.
I'd say both of us, we don't do favorites, really.
Yeah.
Right? It's all beautiful for all its own reasons. And so, and you know another truism? You visit a place, you have this magical experience, you think that's the best thing I've ever done, I want to do it again, you can't.
Yeah.
You can't go back and relive it. It's never the same the second time you go. So don't even bother trying. Anybody I haven't.
Did you still have a question? Because you keep getting jumped over.
Yeah, anybody got jumped over? Yeah.
Well, my question was more about, do you charter it when you're not on it, or have you ever considered like bringing people along for a rental tour type
Yeah.
anything in that?
I'm too introverted for that, and we talked about in the beginning when we were going to buy a boat. The question was, have we chartered our boat or thought about bringing people on to pay charter? We've never considered that. In the very beginning, we thought about it when we were going to buy a boat, because of course you can buy a bigger, better boat, newer boat, because you're putting it into charter. We've chartered enough boats and seen how much they get abused, and decided we don't want that, because we knew eventually we wanted this to really be our home. We have a lot of friends that have done that, and they've done it successfully, and you kind of budget in that you're going to have to spend some money once you pull it out of the charter program and it becomes yours. There's a lot you're going to have to fix. You're going to need new sails. You're going to want better sails than what a charter boat has. So there's a lot of factors. It just was never in it for us. It wasn't what we liked, what we wanted to do. Anything else?
Yeah.
You guys have a beautiful boat and a lot of fun times there, but when you guys are at larger ports or anything, Mark, did you ever just have to get a hot shower, stay in a hotel, get away, sleep in a real bed, things like that? Or were you pretty much just settled on your boat and that's where you felt at home and really comfortable?
Boat's home and we have hot water. Bring on the sun. We have hot water. We actually have an air conditioner in our room. We very rarely use it. But if it's a really hot day and you just want to stretch out a little bit at nighttime, you don't open the hatch. Cool air.
Yeah. You ever practice your celestial navigation just in case?
Never have practiced celestial navigation. I took a class in it here, in this room, but no, never pursued it. We know people who do have sextants and they use it, but it's complicated.
How about medical care?
Okay, so I wanted to come back around to that anyway, because the finance question.
Medical care.
So the question is, how about medical care? Two-part answer. Medical care is not something the United States is the only good source in the world. We've had our dentistry work done in Curacao. We just had it done in Tahiti. They do great work. The best dentist we ever met in our lives is in Curacao. Anyway. And it's cheaper too. I had developed some white spots on the top of my head. It's keratosis. You get it for too much time in the sun. They're a precancerous lesion. They have to get treated fairly promptly. And so we made the decision to divert, and we went to Tahiti so I could see a dermatologist. But both of us went in, got the full body scans, which you should do from time to time. He burned off all my keratosis, $70 each.
Wow. I got a $1,500 bill for I think 4 lesions.
Right?
The other thing I wanted to say about medical care is insurance. So for our health insurance, we learned about, when the Affordable Care Act was introduced, there was a provision made, one of the compromises that had to be ironed out in Congress, was for an exemption for religious organizations. Okay? And what was born out of that exemption are medical cost-sharing organizations. And I won't go into all the ins and outs of them. So there's a company that we use called Zion Health. They're one of the largest, and we've had good success with them. So with Zion Health, it's not insurance. They cannot call themselves insurance. You pay your fees, your annual fees, monthly fees, and there is an intent that they will pay your medical costs according to a 28-page booklet of rules that they hand out. But they do not have a contractual obligation to pay, they only have the intent. Therefore, they're not insurance. You don't stay in that business very long if you don't pay those people out, right? So they pay, and they've been doing it for years, and there are people who get nasty cancer and have $500,000 shares of medical bills, and they pay. And so they've got a great reputation. We've been using them now 7-8 years. I got kicked off when I hit Medicare.
Well, since we sold the business, 2020.
The two of us were covered with, I think, we did the high deductible plan, but it was $400 a month for the two of us. So that's shocker number one. Shocker number two is it's global. I can send in my receipt no matter where I got the care done, and subject to deductible, they'll reimburse it. And that's hindsight. Hindsight, that's hindsight. That's not. What was my shocker number 3 before I got distracted by that one?
I don't know.
Anyway, so to look up Zion Healthcare, there are other companies that do
It's Zion Health Share.
Zion Health Share. Oh, the third shocker is that yes, they will, even though it's a deductible, they'll pay for your annual physical, they'll pay for mammograms, they pay for colonoscopies, so they're good on preventative too. Sorry?
Yacht insurance.
What about yacht insurance?
So we had a great company we were with until Irma and Maria hit, and our cost of premiums went up 2.5x. And so we started looking around for other options. We finally decided to go with an unusual course. We went with a company out of Trinidad instead of out of one of the Lloyd's of London network companies. The company's called Beacon Insurance. They have a very good track record. They are owned by a larger company out of Barbados, which also has a very good track record. And you know AM Best, that's the American rating system for insurance companies. Well, there's a Caribbean version of that. They're both highly rated. Beacon is a member of the Financial and Insurance Omnibus Program of Trinidad, the founding member of it, so helping negotiate and make sure people are fairly treated. I went through their annual report very carefully, and we never had a claim, but we did have an event. Some of you might know, we got run into, and we were at the dock in Panama by an incompetent moron. And we had to deal with his miserable, horrible, wretched insurance company. And Beacon went side by side with us to manage that. So it was a positive experience with Beacon. And now that we're in the South Pacific, we wanted something closer to home. And so we're with a company out of New Zealand. Shop around, because the prices are all over the place. Watch out for, if your boat's 10 years old, the standard practice is all your major systems are fully depreciated, so you don't get any payment when your boat's a total loss on those systems. Your engines, your rig, right? So very expensive stuff. You can pay a rider and get those covered. So I always get a rider, so I get full replacement costs on those types of things. Read those policies cover to cover. It's boring, but you need to do that. Yes?
2 questions. What is it like to re-enter the land after living on boat? And second question, how long are you planning on doing this indefinitely, or do you have a plan to transition to it?
Okay. So the question is, what's it like returning to land from living on the boat? I'll cover that one, and I'll come back to your second one. And do you mean on any given day, just the sea legs issue, or are you talking about we leave the boat for months at a time? The second one. It's great. I mean, we plan opportunities to take vacations, to see family, to see friends, and to get some of the medical care that is just more convenient to have that continuity with certain doctors. So, and then we take vacations. If Argentina isn't on your bucket list, put it on. It was a fabulous trip. Albania was fabulous, and go there before it gets popular. Right? It's very inexpensive to visit. And then your second question, I'm sorry, was what again? How long do we plan to keep doing this? Like, we kind of look at things in the future, a year or 2 at a time. We're going to keep doing this as long as it's still fun and we're still healthy enough to do it safely. And we have no idea how long it's going to be. So for now, it's indefinite.
Turn on the lights.
Taking the vacation helps make it longer. If we were to stay on the boat full time and never left it, I don't think we could keep doing this. It's just, you need some variety in your life. Any questions?
So when you say take vacation, do you mean you leave the boat and live on an island for a couple months?
No. You can repeat the question.
Yeah, can you repeat the question?
Yeah, when you say take vacation, do you mean leave the boat, go to Argentina for a certain amount of time? Or do you leave the boat for a couple of weeks and go stay on the island? Or is it?
Oh, okay. So within French Polynesia, would we leave the boat and go to visit someplace separate from?
Yeah, like what do you mean by vacation?
By vacation,
what do we mean by vacation?
We mean put the boat in a place where it's going to be get supervised care of some sort while we're gone, and be gone for months.
Yeah.
That's our vacation. And we do, leave. We can have the boat at anchor, and we're confident that we got a good hook. We looked at the weather. There's not going to be any threats in the next couple of days, and so we will go and explore other parts of the area that we can only get to by renting a car and going inland. So we do that sort of thing, and we have left the boat overnight at anchor unattended. Usually we've got friends in the area. We'll say, hey, keep an eye on things, and we've got an anchor watch GPS system running that will call my phone if there's a problem.
Yeah, we love living on the boat, and we get to live on the islands or right next to them and anchored, and I love not having to pack and think about what I need to bring, because it's all there. My closet's there, everything's there. I don't need to pack anything. My shampoo's there. I don't have to pack it in a Ziploc bag. Like, everything's there at where we have it, so it's just nice. Yeah, we like it. But we can't go everywhere on our boat. We wouldn't take our boat to Argentina. We could, but we choose not to. And we're both love travel, so we take time off the boat. And then we don't have to worry about the boat. We put it somewhere safe, and we can go visit new and explore new places that we wouldn't go with the boat.
Do you
Do you trail the dinghy, the tender boat, or is that inflatable one? How does that work?
Yeah, our dinghy, there was a picture in the presentation of it. It's a classic, Zodiac style rib. So it's got a hard fiberglass shell and inflatable tubes on the outside. We do not tow it. A lot of people do tow them. We choose not to tow it. It's kind of rough on the dinghy and slows the boat down. So we put the boat, we've got this cross beam at the back of the boat with a couple of chocks on it. Our boom has a unique feature. It actually is a crane. And so we can use it to crane the thing up and strap it down. Probably should call it a night.